everybody, Pastor Randy here. Welcome back to Making It Simple, the great way to kick off the week. Right here with another lesson. Hope you had a blessed weekend. We're going to dive back in, and more than likely, Lord willing, we'll wrap up this series this week as we've looked now at many parts of seeking and understanding what is discernment. Now, of course, we've taken a lot of time to break this down so that we can look at this not only in a simplistic, making it simple kind of way, but in a way that we can apply, in a way that this is a daily process of living this out. Because God really wants us to understand some things. We tend to be the ones to complicate stuff. God makes it really simple. He says, as we left off last week, if you seek for wisdom, like you do silver and what have you, you'll find it. Again, that's the action component. We talked about, as we left off in our last lesson, about what are you looking for? And that's the age-old question. You know, again, songs have been written and stories and poems and books and movies and whatever. What are you looking for? Well, that seems to be one of those questions that could go on and on and on. But the thing is, especially when it comes to our faith life, we should want to learn. We should want to grow. Because those are the things that gives us foundation. Those are the things that allow us to see tomorrow. Again, one of the things that I really try to really stress, one of the points that I really try to stress here at Making It Simple, is leaving out religion. Now, again, I realize that may upend some people, and it is never my intention to intentionally upset anyone. But friends, I'm telling you, as a pastor now for over 20 years, in fact, we're approaching 25, religion gets in the way because we keep adding all this stuff. And we keep adding and piling on more and more and more as the years go by, to the point of where the original point is completely suffocated and buried. And no one takes the time to look for that. We just deal with what's on the surface and accept that that's what it is. You know, there's a big, huge process going on right now in Rome, and they're looking for the new pope. And I don't mean this disrespectful in any way, but I saw some of the pomp and circumstance and red hats and all this stuff going on yesterday. And friends, I have all respect for anybody and what they think, what they want to do, whatever. But the bottom line is, none of that stuff has got anything to do with finding God. Nothing. Our relationship with the Lord is personal. It is between you and Him. Bottom line. And so as we're looking at this process through Proverbs chapter 2, again, we want to learn, we want to grow. Look at verse 7. All right, this is chapter 2, verse 7. We've been going through the last several verses. All right, so we left off in verse 6. For the Lord gives wisdom, that's provides, offers, and from His mouth comes knowledge and understanding. Now, here, so the offer is there. The ability to have is there. All right, verse 7, this is where we start today. He stores up success for the upright. He is a shield for those who live with integrity. And we're going to get into verse 8. So that He may guard the paths of justice and protect the way of His faithful followers. Let's look about this for a minute. Stores up. What does that mean? There's a plan for your future. There's a hope for your future. It's there. But are you seeking it, or have you already quit before the game starts? You know, you look across the ring and the opponent is bigger than you. You look across the 50-yard line and the other team has got faster players, stronger players. So you don't even try. You just give up. You get up on Monday and it's, oh, geez, here we go again. Oftentimes, one of the things that I'm finding in life today is many are just conditioned to quit before you ever get started. How will you ever know? How will you ever find if you never seek? It's kind of a real simple principle, But that's what the Lord is saying here. I have stored up. So it is there. It exists. It is tangible. It is waiting on you. But are you willing to look for it? He says he stores up success. What is success in the eyes of God? Is it the big house and the big car and the big bank account and the notoriety and the fame and the name? And no. Are those things wrong? No. Depending on how you obtain them. But the success that we, as believers, as followers, as understanders of walking who and finding who God is, our measure of success are the most beautiful words that we will ever hear in our life. Well done, my good and faithful servant. You see, God has stored up this plan for you because it's there. You can have it if you pursue it, if you seek it, just as he's saying here about wisdom. It's there. You can find it. You can have it. So it tells us that he stores up success for the upright. Well, who is that? Who is the upright? The righteous. Those who follow him. Those who listen. Those who are mindful of just how easy it is to be deceived. This is where discernment comes in. Is it always about getting older to understand? No. It is about having the willingness to listen. You see, when I was a young man, I didn't. I'll be the first to admit that. I didn't listen to nothing because I thought I had it all figured out. You know, you base it on the surface, you base it on the visual, you base it on what feels good, what looks good, all those things like that. Never thinking about the cost. Never thinking about the big picture. What is all of this going to mean one day? But then you come to understand who God really is. Getting outside of the circle that we have created of all these barriers and all these things that get in the way of understanding who God is, understanding what it really means, all behind the layers of stuff that people have created that have nothing to do with God. Nothing. It tells us here, he is a shield. Well, that's just real simple in that he is a protector. A protector. Now, what we need to understand in that, friends, is that does not mean that he stops the bullet from coming. But he prevents the death and destruction that it brings. You see, when I was a police officer, we'd wear a bulletproof vest. That didn't stop the bullet from penetrating my body. It did that, but it didn't stop the bullet from coming. In other words, if the bad guy shot at me, I would still get hit. It would still hurt. It could bruise or break a rib or whatever the case. Well, that's life. But God is our shield. So while the injury may still come, the pain, mental state may still come, life continues. It doesn't cease. It tells us he is a shield for those. So that for those is a specific intentional direction. It says for those who live with integrity. What is that? The intentional pursuit of better. What does that go back to? Seeking. What are you looking for? That's the pivotal question in Proverbs chapter 2. What are you pursuing? What are you looking for? And in that pursuit, in that seeking, do you have discernment? In other words, are you mindful of what is of God and what is of the world? Because living a life that pleases God. See, friends, one of the things that sometimes gets misconstrued, if you will, there's our big word for the day, is that somehow that equates perfection and you never stub your toe again. But that's not real. And that's not what God is looking for. He's looking for one that is willing to pursue, willing to seek, willing to listen. Because if you're there, then you're moldable. Then you can be conformed and pointed in a better direction. In other words, before you can teach, you have to be teachable. And that's what life is. And that's what God wants us to see is, can I teach you something? Are you willing to listen? Because that is the key component. If you're not willing to listen, you're not willing to learn. All right. So what we're pursuing, a life that pleases God, and it's not perfection. That is not, I'm better than you or some kind of snooty attitude. But my heart is surrendered. I am willing to learn. Lord, will you teach me? I am willing to receive. Because this is all based on the requirement of having a relationship with God. Not an acknowledgement, not a, yeah, I believe in God. No. A relationship. In other words, how do I pursue this in a way that causes it to improve, to strengthen, and to ultimately allow me the benefit of being able to show it to somebody else? How does this improve my life to a better degree that allows me to be a blessing to someone else? I have to seek that. I have to seek that. That is not about religion. That is not about dogmatic approach and legalistic and pointing our fingers at everybody about how wrong they are. No, that is about looking at me. That is what this is about. And that requires relationship, which absolutely requires discernment about everything that comes our way. That's where we're going to leave off our lesson today. Am I thinking about what is coming? Because everything that I allow is exactly what will continue. God bless you, friends. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow right back here at Making It Simple.